Come on in. Today we're going to talk about managing leaders' time. Managing leaders' time. Think about um, think about the fact that many leaders feel starved for time. We're working under this assumption that longer hours lead to improved productivity. Like I work longer, than I'm going to be more efficient, more effective, going to be more trusted, have more credibility. And many leaders really just assume this, and they just drive themselves and others to increase effectiveness. They're trying to just squeeze it in, right? They're trying to squeeze it in, and it's not working. It's just not working. So this is the Better You Leadership Podcast, a live recording of the podcast. My name is Angela Odom, and I teach women how to lead themselves and others. And this is number one, part one of a four-part series on managing your time as a leader. And so what I'm doing is really going through an article, right? I'm going to take you through an article that I really find very interesting and useful and relevant. So I'm going to take you through an article over the next 4 Tuesdays, starting today, right? So every Tuesday at noon is when we record this podcast. And I want to take you through this article written by Marilyn Paul, Paul. She's a PhD, and David Peter Stroh, Stroh. And so they've written really a really detailed article about leaders and how we manage our time. And sometimes within the article, they equate time to energy, how much energy we really have. I think it's a very interesting approach as they have laid out four different areas for us to focus on when we're talking about managing time. And so we'll go through that. But first, the four different points that they make, parts of the article that we're going to cover. The first is a focus on sustainable productivity. Sustainable is the key word, right? And we know that leaders, what's the thing leaders do? Leaders get things done, right? Results oriented, with focusing on vision and communicating a direction, right? And not necessarily talking about managing skills, but leadership, right? And what that looks like. So one is a focus on sustainable productivity. Two would be identification and reduction of phantom workload. The phantom workload, we know what that looks like. It's the work people unwittingly create for themselves by taking shortcuts around or trying to avoid essential difficult tasks. And this is according to the authors of this article titled "Managing Your Time as a Leader." And then number three, um, the third part of what we will discussion is tools for managing time more effectively in four leadership domains. I'm really intrigued about the leadership domains. And then the fourth would be a behavior change model that enables people to reliably put good time management ideas, both traditional and innovative, into sustainable practice. And again, sustainable, like what can you do over time, right? And so, managing your time as a leader, written by Marilyn Paul, who's a PhD, and then David Peter Stroh, Stroh. They are principals of Bridgeway Partners, and you can go to bridgewaypartners.com. I don't know these people. I just know this is a really good article. And what I know for sure is that real leaders read. That's what I know for sure. Real leaders read. And I'm going to encourage you to do that. You can pick up any book, and guess what? You can read that thing. It's videos. You have art. You have audios. You have podcasts. You have all these things, all these ways to read, and that way you can take from the experiences of others and infuse them into your life, the way that you are leading yourself and others, right? And Maryland, it says on this website that Dr. Paul, Maryland, her special area of interest are time management, disorganization, and managing workload systemically. She is the author of the acclaimed book, It's Hard to Make a Difference When You Can't Find Your Keys. She wrote that in 2004. And then David Peter Stroh, Stroh, was a co-founder of Innovation Associates, which is a consulting firm, right? They focused on organizational learning. And so this is, I want to make sure that when we are quoting someone or talking about their work, that we give them credit. So that's what we're doing, right? We are focusing over the next 4 weeks on managing your time as a leader based on an article written by these two individuals. And so want to make sure that we focus, number one, today we're focusing on sustainable productivity. This is the first part of the article. And so I'm just going to go through. This is pretty interesting to me that we're all experiencing this, and then sometimes we act like we're not, right? We act like we have more time than we really do. And so the article starts out with the overview, the whole premise that many leaders feel starved for time, like you just don't have enough time to do whatever it is that's on your plate, right? And we want to make sure that we just acknowledge that whole concept. Um, Working under the assumption that longer hours lead to improved productivity. Um, these leaders, us, me and you, right? Women leaders, we drive ourselves and others to increase effectiveness. We're telling people, squeeze it in, you can get it done, work a little longer. We're sending more emails. We are working in all these different platforms, all these social media platforms, and we're sending the information out, most likely without a system to filter it and determine what's actually important. So this article, what the authors say is working people are expected to run at a fast pace and be highly productive. Yet at the same time, there's a chronic sense of individual and collective slippage. Like I'm not getting it all done. I'm not able to get it all done, and less than optimal work performance and impending burnout. Have you ever been burnout? Have you ever been just burnout? Like I don't even want to go in to the office. I don't even want to see these people. I don't want to think about this workload. It's just too much. You could be burnt out in different areas in your home life. Like, oh my God. Have you had like a, let me just say, have you ever had like a baby that you had to take care of? Um, like maybe a sick baby, right? Sick baby that you had to take care of. So that meant that you could not do anything else. So everything else you thought was important, it goes out the window because that's the priority, right? And so you might have a less than optimal work performance, like the people that pay your bills kind of work performance, because that's what you're focused on at that time. And I think the authors are through the next four parts, we're going to really get to the whole thing of what do you value and what's important to you, and to have a balanced leadership approach throughout your career, your month, your day, your week, right? And so the authors go on to say the ability of leaders to manage the increase both in workload and burnout more effectively is essential. And they give you a reason why. They say because their behavior has significant impact on others. The leaders have an impact on others. In your home, your mood impacts others in your home. In your workplace, your mood impacts others, right? And then they're using you as an example of how to be, what's important, right? So recent studies, according to the article, confirm that under stress, people act more defensively, make poor decisions, and literally lose the executive function of their minds. This is especially costly for leaders because they set the tone for their organization. We know that. We know that. Their moods affect how others think and behave, so that people around them also tend to react in a confused, defensive, and otherwise unproductive ways. And this is according to a study that the authors conducted. And it is common sense for us. We have common sense. We know that that is actually true. That has been, I've experienced that myself, right? And so when we ask our clients, and this is Dr. Paul and Mr. Stroh, asking their clients what they know about how to manage time. And I think this is all of us. So when you ask about, so how do you manage your time? And they say, they list many familiar approaches: set goals, plan ahead, delegate, track commitments. You want to track commitments to ensure work is completed, and then create manageable to-do lists, right? And then, so that's the first part. When you ask people, that's what they come up with. And then when they ask, the authors asked if these things that were listed, these tools, um, if they were actually used. Say they can name all these things, but then do you actually use them? So the answers that they received were, we do all these things and they are not sufficient for us to stay on top of the demands we face. Because you use the tools and you're still not getting it done, right? You're still overstretched. And then the second answer is, we know we should do these things, but we just don't have time to do them. So these are conventional approaches to time management. They're useful and when you're organizing to get work done. However, increasing personal efficiency alone is inadequate, according to the authors, and I believe this. It's inadequate. So increasing your personal efficiency is not enough for leaders to resolve this strategic issue. I love how the authors frame the strategic issue, right? Being how to achieve high levels of sustainable, and keep listening to the word sustainable, how to achieve high levels of sustainable long-term performance while meeting the challenge of doing more with less. The challenge of doing more with less, right? Um, and that, right, I love how they frame that, that as the issue for being more productive, right? So personal efficiency is just not enough, right? And so powerful work dynamics lead people individually and collectively to spend large amount of their work time pursuing non-productive activities. Right? Like you're spending so much time on things that are not aligned with the priorities. So leaders must understand this, according to the authors. Leaders must understand the nature of these dynamics and what they can do to change individual and collective habits of action. I love that term, habits of action, by the way. So, the purpose of this article is to help leaders at all levels update their approach to time management. That's what we're going to do over the next 4 Tuesdays, right? This is part 1 of 4. To help leaders update their approach to time management. So, and you say, so what? To do what? To better address the challenges of today's work world. I said, well, the key elements of this approach, again, there are 4, right? One is a focus on sustainable productivity, right? Sustainable productivity. Like, how can I be more efficient personally over time? Productivity. How can I get things done over time? And number 2, identification and reduction of phantom workload. And then number 3, tools for managing time more effectively in 4 leadership domains. And number 4 is a behavior change model that enables people to reliably put good time management ideas into sustainable practice. So let's talk about this. What the authors focus on in sustainable productivity. And I want to pause for a second and let you just grab hold to what we're talking about here in sustainable productivity. What does that look like for you? Think about it. And are you one of the people saying, I know about all these tools, I just don't have time to use them. I know about all these tools, but I just, come on. I got other things to do, right? So as we take a deep breath and just dive into this real quick about increasing sustainable productivity. And again, the authors of this article have laid this concept out really well, right? It's very organized and it makes perfect sense. So perhaps the most important assumption for leaders is to question is that working harder, longer hours, and more days in a year increases productivity. So that's an assumption. It does not make any sense. And so to me, it does not. So that's why I say take your leave days. Me, Angela Odom, the Better You community. Take your leave days. Working harder, working longer, all that kind of stuff for more days. That's not sustainable, right? That's not, don't do that. So take your leave days, plan it out, be strategic, all those things. So the authors go on to say that it's a seductive proposition because working harder it only works up to a point, and then beyond that point, the personal consequences include reduced brain functioning, right? Increased stress and health problems. Your effectiveness is decreasing, and sometimes we have strained or failed relationships. Just take a step back, for divorce rates or failed relationships in certain categories or industries, with military personnel, with police officers, firemen, fire people, I guess, on whatever correct term is these days, and people that work long hours. It's expected for them to work long hours overtime. It's it is how much time do you spend with relationships, right? That's something that we need to look at, personal relationships outside of your work environment. So the impact on teams and units is also great. Overwork tends to lead to mistakes that result in poor quality and rework, which means you got to do it over, right? Do it right the first time or do it over. That's actually what I say in my own space, right? So you want to also focus on like unproductive meetings. And I love how they weave meetings into this article. So the impact of overwork is sometimes clear and sometimes it's subtle, but it is insidious, leading to a long-term decline in the quality of life. And then the authors give examples um, using a senior manager of a major pharmaceutical company named Bill. It says Bill worked long hours to keep up with his assignments, which included leading several global teams, developing market research projects, global, worldwide, right? Bill enjoyed being the expert who was needed by people across the globe. So he would make himself or try to make himself available to his colleagues. And he prided himself on putting in long hours at work and being available at home. Being available at home. You get that part, right? He prided himself on that. And when one of the authors met him, Marilyn, Dr. Paul met him in her capacity as a consultant, right? He was in the middle of a brutal divorce and was under scrutiny by his boss. He felt pulled in many directions and had trouble focusing on the essence of his responsibilities because he was trying to make himself available to so many people. So he was not really focused on the essence of his responsibilities. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Bill, as we're using as the article is using in this example, he also had difficulty showing the leadership his department needed. It was known as an uneven and unreliable manager. Get any of those in your life? Or are you that person, uneven and unreliable? Some days he would be remote and unavailable. On others, he would be chatty and even long winded because he was so stretched with this global team, right? A divorce and some other things going on. He let his subordinates run for long time without supervision. You ever do that? You ever think that you're that person, like your boss is out doing all these things and you're running a project or you're a team lead without any supervision. You've gone and you say, hey, how am I doing? You're doing, oh yeah, you're doing fine. Oh yeah, you're doing fine. So this is the scenario that the authors are painting about Bill. And so because he was so stressed, he let his subordinates, run with it, right? And then when he was able to catch up on his sleep and reduce the backlog, he'd take a look and he would notice what was happening without him. Sometimes he would be surprised or even shocked by what he saw, and he would plunge in with a fine-tooth comb, aggravating his subordinates and creating resentment that he hadn't been there sooner, or he wasn't present earlier. So now he's going back and he's changing stuff. He's reining things in. My God, are you kidding me? So there was a sense of a resentment. I could see that. And then he would back off, and because of the sense of resentment, right? And then this whole cycle of uneven management would repeat. So there are costs associated with an uneven manager. The behavior is the costs are really high. But he had difficulty saying no. Ooh, I love this part right here. He had difficulty saying no for requests for his expert advice. And this is all about, still focus on time management. If he was going to survive at the company, he would have to deeply restore his energy, learn to set clear priorities, and even out his managerial behavior. So I really just like that whole part by itself, talking about he didn't understand the essence of his responsibilities. So leaders need to think in terms of increasing not simply levels of work and productivity, but primarily the level of sustainable productivity. And then the authors go on to explain what they mean by sustainable productivity. And it is getting the right things done well in a timely way. That's all by itself, right? Getting the right things done well and in a timely way, and preserving and restoring resources, including oneself, one's good standing with colleagues and customers, and one's relationship with family, community, and the natural environment. That's pretty cool, isn't it? I love that. So sustainable productivity is very easy to understand as the authors have laid it out. They focus on the right things, right? Getting those things done, completing those things, and then making sure you preserve your resources. And within the Better You community, we focus on leading ourselves first. So this is in alignment with the guiding principles of our community. So experience shows that time is not something that can be saved. It's, oh my God, I love this. I love this statement so much. You can't save time, right? It can only be spent more or less wisely. Think about that. So, one way to approach this is to clarify what really matters to us, live life in accordance with our deepest values, and serve others' best interests as well as our own. From a leader's point of view, time management needs to be more about helping oneself and others make wise and courageous choices rather than doing more with less. Wow. I just love that. So that's part one of the article. And again, we're going to focus on next Tuesday we'll dive into reducing phantom workload, reducing phantom workload. Then we're going to managing time in four domains, and then we'll look at changing behavior, right? And just real quick on this, managing time in four domains. The four domains that are listed in the article: spiritual, mental, emotional, and material, as in physical stuff, right? And then these align with the leadership functions, which spiritual domain aligns with mobilized commitment through aspiration, and the mental domain aligns with the think strategically function of a leader. And then the emotional domain aligns with build relationships and community. And then the material, like the stuff, the physical stuff, aligns with organized for action, which I'm just really excited to get into, to dive into this, right? And so for us today, what I'd ask is for you to think through sustainable productivity and what that looks like to you, and whether or not you believe that working longer equates to working smarter, getting more things done, being more efficient. So just take a look at what you're doing, especially as we are approaching um, the time of year where we tend to have more commitments, right? We tend to have more social commitments as opposed to work commitments. The work is not going to stop, right? And so social commitments. So sustainable productivity is a real thing. So think about your own mindset, whether you think you need to work night and day. You need to be emailing people throughout the night. You need to be posting in group meetings at 3 in the morning. You need to be, think about it. Does that even make sense? Right? That's not sustainable. It is not at all. You need to be sending text messages to people, all these things. So I'm just telling you to consider sustainable productivity and what that looks like to you. Oh, by the way, I want to thank you for listening today for part one of four part series on managing your time as a leader. So my name is Angela Odom, and I am a life and leadership coach. I'm the host of the Better You Leadership Podcast and the founder of the Better You Project. So I would encourage you to share this, right? Go ahead and subscribe to the podcast, Better You Leadership Podcast. Comment, make some positive comments on the various platforms, wherever you listen to podcasts. So comment and make them positive. Yeah, I'm telling you that, right? Subscribe. We want to, I have my own goal is to have 1,000 downloads by the end of the year. I'm at 850, right? We're at 850. Want to get 1,000 downloads by the end of 2021. So I'm counting on you to help me out with that. And what's a download? Go to it and listen to it. That's what it means, right? And so thank you so much for that. We're in 14 different countries now. The Better You Leadership Podcast is now in 14 different countries. And we're very grateful for our listeners. And again, so I'm asking you to do is to subscribe to the podcast and to like. I want 5 ratings, a rating of 5, right? And then make some positive comments. Tell us what this is doing for you, what this adds to you, what value you gain from this listening. All right, thank you so much. Have a great day, and may the good Lord continue to bless you and yours. Take care.